You know what? I don't think Silksong is going to be a 2025 release, so let's look at the best upcoming games with at least a 2025 release window, beginning with Silly Polly Beast, an action-adventure shooter with horror elements, which is doing interesting things with the camera as you guide Polly through a distorted nightmare realm in search of her missing sister. You're switching between side-scrolling, behind the back, and isometric camera angles, using guns in all of these, which could potentially be very interesting, also using silhouettes to great effect. Additionally, you will get access to a skateboard using it for traversal, but you can also use it to bash enemies, with the surreal horror world being excellently done. We did also get a new look at the long-in-development tactical RPG Demonschool, and while it doesn't have a date, at least we got a Q3 2025 window. This looks to be Persona-inspired, where you have to balance demon hunting combat with university life on a mysterious island, fight big weirdos in the realm between the human and demon worlds, having a fascinating momentum-based, turn-based combat system where positioning matters, since the attacks of one character can trigger the other members to attack as well. There is a social sim aspect where you have a limited amount of time per day to do activities with possible benefits like strengthening bonds between characters, having a sick art style which mixes 3D, 2D pixel arts and hand-drawn portraits and simply looks cool. This video is brought to you by Raiders of Blackveil, an action roguelite with MOBA-inspired hero characters and extraction elements, also having co-op support for up to 3 players so you can play with friends. You play as the rebels, fighting back against the mega cop Blackveil, having to raid their factories, grab loot, and get out before things go sideways. Pick a MOBA-style champion, choosing from 8 classes such as Mage, Assassin, Priest, Guardian, Monk, Druid, Warrior, or Warlock, and customize your build with over 300 perks to choose from, with dual perk combos that allow classes to synergize in co-op. Fight through waves of enemies in procedurally generated factory zones filled with traps and bosses, gathering loot and gear, as well as other resources like bandages, keys, souvenirs, and currency, which can be used back at base for powerful upgrades. Extraction elements kick in when you must decide whether to push your luck for rare items or to get out while you can, with inventory space limitations forcing you to choose what to keep, having a great looking art style, so if interested, try the demo, wishlist the game, and look forward to the release in Q4 2025. A fantastic looking third-person hack-and-slash action roguelite is Morbid Metal, where you can shapeshift between 4 distinct characters in real time, each offering a different combat style and special ability. The action looks intense and stylish, with every combat scenario looking cool due to the sheer variety in gameplay, especially the giant swords that some of the characters can wield, mix crowd control attacks, ranged weapons, and heavy finishes by swapping heroes mid-combo, using synergies between classes and their abilities to take out your enemies. It is a roguelite, so there is procedural generation with randomized upgrades and modifiers scattered around the world, promising to have drastic impacts on your build for the run. As with most modern roguelites, there is permanent progression in the form of unlocking new characters and permanent upgrades, keeping you hooked for just one more run, with intense looking boss fights as well. Fantastic Haven is a cozy looking magical creature tycoon game where you guide a council of elders in restoring a broken world by protecting mythical species. Build and expand your refuge in order to house more of these creatures, taking care of them to the best of your ability, with biome variety resulting in different fantasy creatures being available. Send mages on expeditions to recover injured animals, gather ether, and negotiate with regional factions, since the world has increasingly turned to technology over magic and the people want these supposedly dangerous creatures eliminated. Every decision changes trust levels with the locals, with the goal of finding some sort of harmony and balance between competing forces. The creatures are also not being kept in some sort of zoo, but a sanctuary instead, where after proper care and nursing them back to health, they can be released to reawaken the land's dormant magic, with the expected tycoon game progression system of unlocking new buildings and progression up the tech tree looking so wonderful and will give you a warm, fuzzy feeling. One of the prettiest upcoming titles is Sword of the Sea, which will be obvious when you learn of this developer's other games with team members from Giant Squid having worked on Journey, Abzu, and The Pathless, beautiful titles in themselves. In this game, you embody the Wraith, resurrected in a desolate necropolis and tasked with unveiling an ancient sea beneath the sands, using your hover sword to surf through shifting sand and exploring submerged ruins. This game embraces meditation through motion, taking inspiration from snowboarding and skateboarding in the traversal, with some impressive looking sand physics as well, which makes this such a joy to look at. You have to maintain some sort of flow state as you glide effortlessly through the sands, pulling off sick tricks like rail grinds when you have the opportunity, as well as using the naturally integrated half-pipes, ramps and wall rides in the environment to get to where you want to go. You are collecting ocean seeds to restore water to areas, unlocking new routes and boosting speed, with mention of some sorts of ancient evil beneath the sands, which seems to be referring to some sort of Leviathan monster with awe-inspiring scale. But I don't think there is combat in the traditional sense, but would not be surprised to see a chase sequence or two, with the good news being that we will get to play very soon. Farming sim titles have exploded since the release of Stardew Valley, recently becoming the most positively rated title on Steam, surpassing Portal 2, but for something a little different, how about Discounty, a live sim title instead, where you take over your aunt's struggling discount supermarket in the small harbour town of Blomkast and try to turn it around. The atmosphere leans cozy and community-driven, having a slower-paced gameplay loop built around daily routines and small decisions that ripple across the town. Start each morning restocking shelves, adjusting prices, and preparing for customers, then switch to active management as you man the cashier and get to know the locals. After hours, explore the town to form relationships, barter with local producers, and track how your choices shape both your reputation and the economy. Characters react to your business style, with some welcoming your ambition, while others gossip about your methods. Where trust does not come easy in this little town, so you need to work at it, having some characters that might just be plotting your downfall. You can upgrade and expand your shop, improving efficiency and increasing size on your way to becoming a business success, looking like quite the interesting alternative in this space and should be great. A hauntingly beautiful narrative horror adventure game is Bye Sweet Carole, where you take our protagonist through a creepy orphanage and an unsettling fantasy world in search of her missing friend Carole. Set in the early 1900s, it is set in an interesting time period and blends the surreal animated dreamscapes inspired by classic hand-drawn films with horror, creating a dissonant tone that shifts between childlike wonder and creeping menace. It plays like a side-scroller with exploration, light platforming elements, combat and even stealth as you evade corrupted creatures while unraveling the mystery behind Bunny Hole Orphanage. You can temporarily shapeshift into a rabbit to slip through small spaces or to access hidden areas, although this form makes the character more vulnerable and alters how you approach certain scenarios. Some sequences requires careful timing and spatial awareness to navigate traps or escape enemies, while others lean into puzzle solving and item use to progress. You also receive assistance from an umbrella-wielding companion who can interact with the environment and fight enemies, but the classic Disney-style animated movie look has to be the highlight and is very high potential. Speaking of horror titles, a tense isometric co-op survival horror game is Whisper Mountain Outbreak, in which you and up to 3 others try to survive a supernatural threat after an ancient curse has been unleashed on Mount Bissing. Set in 1998, the game draws clear inspiration from classic horror games but has an isometric camera letting you explore an eerie facility, scavenging for resources, solving puzzles and battling enemies when needed. The developer describes this as run-based, where each run starts with selecting 1 out of 3 randomly picked character classes out of a pool of 6, each offering unique gear and passive traits. work together with your team to solve puzzles while under pressure, finding keys, rerouting power, or mixing chemicals while facing increasingly aggressive creatures that swarm the area in waves. Melee and ranged weapons are available, but with limited ammo, perhaps you will rely more on the former, having proximity voice chat and the ability to revive downed teammates. Its demo has been well received, but I'm curious about the overall structure and replayability of the game, if it is just one scenario or more, and how long a session is supposed to be, with the multiplayer focus being a concern as well, but it is highly anticipated for good reason and is one to watch. Mouse PI for Hire immediately got attention when it was announced, since this was in the wake of Mickey Mouse going into the public domain and is a stylized first-person shooter with noir flair, using that rubber hose style animation but in first person. You play as Jack Pepper, a private detective investigating a criminal conspiracy in the city of Mouseburg. The 1930s cartoon-inspired look and monochrome art style makes it stand out, along with a jazzy soundtrack. But don't let the visuals fool you, since it might be more violent than you might expect, with classic first-person elements like headshots being a factor here. The action is fast-paced, channeling classic boomer shooter energy as you use revolvers, Tommy guns, and experimental cartoon weapons to take out your enemies. Each level is designed with verticality, destructible environments, and hidden areas, offering exploration opportunities beyond the run-and-gun action. Unlock new weapons and tools as you uncover deeper layers of the case, with movement upgrade options like grappling hooks or a helicopter, which allows you to access secret paths and alternate routes. And if Cuphead is anything to go by, this could be something special. This next title has been a very long time coming, since OG indie game fans might recognize the name Green Heart Games, makers of the smash hit Game Dev Tycoon from 2013, which has an astounding 38,800 Steam reviews as of recording, generating a substantial amount of money, I think, so much so that they did not need to make another game for 12 years, which is why Tavern Keeper is of note. This is a charming tycoon game in which you build and operate a whimsical inn nestled in the magical outskirts of Hufflington, with a cozy and humorous tone as you welcome all sorts of customers in this fantasy world, on top of regular tavern stuff like ensuring your customers have sufficient food and drink, hiring and managing staff, as well as building up and expanding your tavern. Things can suddenly erupt into scenarios involving bar fights, sudden fires, mass illness, and more. There will be a single-player campaign with unique characters being introduced, with the free-form design mode if you simply enjoy the building process. So while the Tavern Tycoon game has been done before, this might yet be something special. 3D Quap, aka Baby Steps, is the latest entry in the rage game subgenre, coming to us from the godfather of the genre in Bennett Foddy, perhaps now best known for Getting Over It. You play as Nate, a hapless, failed son who gets sucked into a TV while bumming his life away in his parents' basement, finding a new purpose in simply putting one foot in front of the other. Make your way across a mist-shrouded mountain and rolling landscapes by controlling each leg independently in fully simulated physics-driven movement, mixing the hilarity of ragdoll physics with the frustration of losing minutes of progress when you fall and tumble. The world appears to be a little bit more open as compared to the linear design of Getting Over It, including a variety of biomes and associated hazards, possibly hiding secrets as well, with a cast of strange NPCs that makes this situation even more absurd, and given the nature of the game, will probably blow up on Twitch. A gorgeous rhythm adventure game of note is Unbeatable, telling the story of Beat, our pink-haired front woman of an outlawed band on the run in a world where music is forbidden. Explore the world, talking to people, helping them or not, punch cops and run away after doing so in this world, adding in a variety of rhythm game segments which are not just limited to the regular note highway. It is not quite rhythm heaven either in terms of inspiration, but rather has regular lanes, but also one example where you are hitting baseballs, and I assume more variety to come, with it all being centered in two buttons only in up and down. Of course, the gorgeous anime-inspired art style, cutscenes, and even visual presentation is the main highlight, where if you're curious, its free prologue demo, Unbeatable White Label, is one of the best rated free games on Steam, and this current version has a demo as well, so check it out if interested. Easy Delivery Co. is a moody and atmospheric delivery driving sim where you play as a quiet courier navigating frozen mountain roads in a K-truck, making deliveries to scattered residents across a sleepy town blanketed in snow. While it looks cozy on the surface, there is something a little bit uncanny underneath it all, perhaps due to the PS1 style low poly visuals more commonly seen in horror games, or the fact that you will spend long stretches in solitude with brief cryptic interactions with characters that hint at something stranger in the air. Manage limited fuel as you pick up packages, follow vague directions, and try to beat the clock, or ignore it entirely, stopping to refuel, warm up near heaters, or chat with villagers who just seem a little off. This is still a driving game at its core, so the driving physics promises to be realistic, with vehicle handling, snow, and elevation mattering. Interestingly, it will also have split-screen racing mode, which seems very different from the vibe of the single-player experience, but I suppose that's why I love indie games, since they can just do stuff just because, you know? One of the most hyped releases is Nivalis, a slice-of-life cyberpunk simulator that is the follow-up to Cloudpunk, where that game is a first and third-person delivery simulator with a narrative, but this game instead has you living in the city as a resident. Build your way up through running a modest food stall, eventually owning bars, nightclubs, and wider business ventures, making friends and enemies along the way. As we barrel towards our shared cyberpunk future, perhaps this game is a glimpse into the future of living in a towering, neon-soaked metropolis with flying cars, with, I presume, mega corporations being in control, and elements of AI, corruption from supposed law enforcement, criminal gangs which want to harvest your organs, and more. The first-person simulation looks impressive, extending to managing your businesses firsthand, down to decorating and placing tables and chairs, going to the shops to purchase ingredients or to grow your own, where you can even get a boat and go fishing if you choose to do so. You can purchase multiple homes in the city, decorate them as you see fit, and perhaps even find love, looking very ambitious and so good. I really enjoyed this developer's previous title in Kingdoms and Castles, which is why Nova Roma is of note, one that switches the setting to ancient Rome instead of a generic medieval setting, where you lead a displaced group of settlers tasked with constructing a new capital after the collapse of the Roman Empire, hoping to create a new city representing all that was good in the empire. This is a city builder through and through, where you have to construct housing, amenities, resource production structures, as well as aqueducts, dams, and irrigation systems to provide for your people. Resources like timber, stone, and labor are managed through supply chains, while citizens must be housed, fed, and appeased through temples, theatres, and public policy. You can pass laws to regulate work, build shrines to maintain favour with the gods, and prepare for natural disasters like floods, which dynamically alter the terrain. The gods are fickle and need to be appeased as well, failing which natural disasters and plague may result, which does remind me of the system in Referral. As you expand your humble village, growing it into a metropolis, you will unlock new tiers of technology, construction, and associated population demands, looking absolutely gorgeous and will be for fans of the genre. I'm on a bit of a city building kick, which is why Super Fantasy Kingdom is on my watch list, being a vibrant roguelite city building survival game where you have to rebuild a fallen realm from scratch while facing waves of monsters, gather resources and expand your kingdom during the day, constructing buildings like farms, mines, forges, and libraries, each contributing to the economy, research, or hero support. You expand your territory tile by tile, making careful placement decisions to optimize production while preparing for attacks that escalate with each passing day. Units will be central to your defense, so recruit warriors, rogues, mages, and more, each with unique perks and behaviors, and use them to defeat the hordes of enemies that really are quite large to the extent of looking like vampire survivors. After your inevitable defeat, you can use glory earned during a run to unlock persistent upgrades like new heroes, relics, and more, where I really love the ultra minimalist pixel art, which looks fantastic. Speaking of minimalist pixel art, another roguelite survival city builder not to be confused with the previous game is The King is Watching, one which is oriented left to right instead of up to down, where you have to build up your kingdom on the left and defend on the right. However, the gimmick is that your gaze alone causes your subjects to work, having to focus on tiles and buildings if you want them to be productive. This adds more of an active strategy element, since you need to prioritize which tiles to activate at any one time, whether it be farms, mines, workshops, or barracks, while you simultaneously have to deal with oncoming waves of enemies. Each run introduces randomized building blueprints, enemy wave patterns, and special events like goblin incursions or fortune teller choices, offering buffs or riskier challenges. You earn upgrades by surviving waves, adding new buildings, spells, relics, or expanding your effective gaze size, while also unlocking permanent upgrades between runs. Its demo has been very well received, having an excellently crafted gameplay loop, and is pretty much a sure thing given how many playtests they have conducted over the past couple of months. Speaking of kings, a chaotic action strategy hybrid is Kingmakers, in which you travel back in time to medieval England with the goal of changing the course of a bloody war. But the gimmick is that you have access to modern weapons and vehicles. This makes the setting both grounded and absurd, where rolling hills, crumbling castles, and muddy battlefields filled with knights and archers now become torn apart by jeeps, grenades, and assault rifles. The action strategy mix is intriguing, since the action unfolds from a third-person behind-the-back camera angle, but you can switch between that and a top-down view of the battlefield, directing your army to capture territory akin to something like Battlefield 2 Commander Mode or Dynasty Warriors, as you execute a higher-level strategy beyond the minute-to-minute action. You are laying siege to enemy castles with physics-driven destruction and ragdoll chaos adding to the mayhem. Trailers have teased a glimpse into the future as well, with flying vehicles, so I wonder how the past and future will interact with each other, with the idea alone being a home run, so this is going to be huge. After being delayed out of 2024, the gritty turn-based tactical RPG Menace is still supposed to be releasing in Q3 2025, of note since it is from the developer of Battle Brothers, one of the most beloved tactical RPGs ever, but this time with a military sci-fi instead of medieval setting. You are commanding a hardened strike team operating in a lawless star system overrun by alien horrors and splintered factions, having to answer distress calls across the system, which also means choosing which to ignore since you only have a limited amount of resources to deploy. Combat is designed around squad-level tactics, with permadeath of units and vehicles, and a bunch of considerations that will determine how effective your attacks are. For example, flanking enemies grants bonuses, as will cover, which means suppressing fire and using explosives to flush out enemy units out of cover will become especially important. Weapons have an effective range, with various pros and cons to the different unit types and vehicles, where supplies are limited as well, so you need to consider ammunition and procurement, as well as the use of specialized weapons like flamethrowers, EMP cannons, and disposable rocket launchers. The procedurally generated battle maps will provide endless replayability, with it, in theory, having a story campaign with named characters, but think XCOM on a star system level scale and you get the idea. 2025 Balatro looks to be Clover Pit, a sinister roguelite strategy game in which you gamble with a slot machine in order to pay off an insurmountable debt. This mixes the addictive scoring of Joker Poker Balatro, the art style of Buckshot Roulette, and the core mechanics of Luck Be a Landlord into possibly the next roguelite hit, with early demo impressions being very positive as well. You are spinning reels, selecting payout symbols, and chaining combos across relics, charms, and modifiers that interact in unpredictable ways. Stack multipliers, delay spending to earn interest so that you can purchase more expensive upgrades later, crafting builds around specific token types or effects. There are meta upgrades between runs, unlocking new charms, and even alternate game modes that change the rules, where it might be concerning to see literal gambling mechanics being injected into indie games, but I suppose at least there are no microtransactions. I do love my rhythm games, which makes the vibrant bits and bobs of interest, a collection of rhythm mini-games whose most direct comparison would be Rhythm Heaven, consisting of over 20 bite-sized rhythm games featuring catchy music and awesome hand-drawn animations. The tone is upbeat and whimsical, mixing a colourful, cartoony aesthetic with playful audio cues that give each mini-game its own personality. Use your reflexes and the simple 2-button controls to complete the levels on the beat, with each level delivering a concise but satisfying challenge. Behind the clean appearance lies a custom game engine designed for lightning-fast response time, so one specifically designed for rhythm games, which means that this should be a great feeling experience. Some of you might have forgotten, but Slay the Spire 2 is still supposed to release in early access this year, a highly anticipated roguelite deck builder, which is the sequel to The deck builder that reignited interest in this subgenre. You return to the Spire 1,000 years after the events of the original, facing a reshaped world filled with new dangers, mechanics, and characters. For the most part, it looks to be identical to the original, but with the aforementioned new stuff not changing anything since they are the masters at this kind of game design. But new characters like the skeletal necrobinder and cards adds whole new ways to play. With this, I believe, following in the footsteps of Hades 2, in that it should launch with a comparable amount of content to the original, but will be expanded even further through early access, and is a no-brainer pick. This next title comes with an asterisk since Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era uses the HOMM IP, which is currently owned by Ubisoft, but they are getting an indie developer, Unfrozen, to make this, best known for Errata's Lord of the Dead, and recently announced that they have indie strategy publisher Hooded Horse on board as co-publisher. This is a turn-based strategy RPG, which on paper is doing everything right, going back to its roots in being most similar to the most popular installments of HOMM 3, instead of the most recent 5-7 trilogy. This means pretty much a 2D world map, hex grid battlefields, and classic castle building where you command legendary heroes leading armies of fantasy creatures, and is a prequel to the classic Enroth timeline. Choose from 6 unique factions, including Temple, Necropolis, Dungeon, Sylvian, the Insectoid Hive, and one still under wraps, with the first 4 being in the previous games, but I'm excited to see what has changed. But the Undead or Necropolis has the potential to be very overpowered as always. However, do note that this will be an early access release, but 1-3 was a core part of my childhood, so of course I'm interested in this. It is not often that a game drops out of nowhere and immediately grabs my attention, but then again, you don't get a Devolver Direct focused on only a single title every day, and the hype is justified since the action roguelite Brick Breaker Ball Pit is excellent based on the demo alone. The the city of Bourbon has been destroyed by a giant ball, leaving a deep pit into the earth, so as fantasy tropes go, people decide to dive in to see what's below. You play as heroes armed with ricocheting magical balls, using these to defeat waves of enemies which come in advancing formations, mixing Breakout with Space Invaders in terms of feel. Fight your way forward, defeating enemies to get XP, and upon leveling up, can choose new balls, upgrade existing ones, merge them and more, with a variety of upgrades which includes poison or fire damage over time, area of effect attacks, and even balls and relics which makes you do more damage to enemies in the back row as an example. Between runs, you expand new Bourbon by building structures that generate resources, harvesting these when you complete a run in order to construct new buildings to unlock more stuff, with the core action being very fun with powerful combos and synergies, roguelite style, and should be in the running for Game of the Year. Speaking of Game of the Year awards, we did also get the release date for Mina the Hollower, the next title from the developers of Shovel Knight, and is an action-adventure title with gothic horror influence. Think Castlevania cross Zelda, but on the more adorable end of things. You play as Mina, a whip-wielding adventurer sent to a cursed island, battling enemies and attempting to save its inhabitants along the way. Despite being in 2D, you will be able to jump, dodge roll, and even burrow underground, adding mobility options, which combined with weapon variety simply looks like a joy to play, with Metroidvania influence in the world design as well. But you can never bet against Yacht Club games, so I cannot wait for Halloween. Watch this video for the biggest announcements from Indie Game Summer.